First story. My mom neglected me, allowed my golden child brother to abuse me while cheating on my dad, causing him to commit self-harm. Then brought her affair partner into our house, who also abused me. Then he demanded I move out of my house and physically assaulted me after I refused. Still, entitled family took his side, so I went NC, and now she is begging me to reconcile. Long post ahead. Any advice is greatly appreciated and desperately needed. Backstory. Everything started when my father ended himself 4 days before Christmas when I was 6, almost 7 years old. I idolized him and honestly felt more love for him than for my mom. I was devastated by his death, and my mom was understandably angry initially. My brother had just turned 5 and was always closer to my mom, so he aligned his feelings with hers and hated my father. Nobody ever shied away from talking badly about my dad. He had awful PTSD from being in the Marines, which led him to have such psychological pain that he abused painkillers. He became a different person and did some bad things, and I was never spared the details. The vilification of my father came any time I expressed sadness or grief over his death. My mom always told me, "It's for the best that he did what he did. You wouldn't have liked him." And whenever I did things she didn't like as a child, she told me I was just like him. He died in December, and by the next summer she had begun what would become a 7-year affair with a man who we had known previously who was serving life in prison for murdering his wife who we also knew. I hated him, especially because he caused my mom to neglect my brother and me. She pawned off on grandparents or family friends while she went to visit him every weekend, 4 hours away. She wrote him every day and spent hours on the phone with him, no exaggeration, 365 days a year for 7 years. I had significant emotional issues, and instead of trying to figure out what was going on, my mom put me on medicine that didn't work, took me to a doctor that didn't know me, and who diagnosed me with oppositional defiant disorder after one visit. I was probably around 8 years old, and then took me to a therapist who would yell at me for acting out and not respecting my mom. I was the problem child, and my brother was a saint in her eyes because he had a different experience with her, and that led the whole family to believe that I just wanted to fight with everyone. To punish me, she sent me to my room, so I started locking the door. Then, in response to that, she took my door off the hinges. She told mine and my brother's teachers that I had behavioral problems and let them treat me like a problem child instead of letting me have a safe space at school. I would defend myself to my brother in arguments, but she never defended me, which led to him believing that it was okay to hit me because I shouldn't have made him mad. After leaving the murderer in prison, she eventually started sleeping with her married best friend who had always been in love with her, who was the only father figure I'd ever truly had, and then kicked him to the curb and made him cry by threatening to tell his wife, who was 20 years old, from another country, while my mom was late 30s, and I didn't even know what happened or why he left. He has recently told me that he's not surprised that it has gotten to where it has, and that he always warned her. She treated me like an adult and sought revenge on me instead of trying to understand why I felt the way I did. I hated her for neglecting me and choosing men over me. Then she met my stepdad, the biggest narcissist in the story. He was friends with my dad. I don't believe this, and used that to try to get close to me. He never understood why I didn't respect my mom because he didn't know about the man in prison and decided that, because of this, I didn't deserve to respect myself. He moved into the house I had lived in since the age of 7. He moved in when I was 16 and began taking my phone, car keys, TV, etc. Even though he paid for nothing, he would do this any time I disrespected him. And my mom defended him by saying it was his house, and I was a child defying an adult. He used to make comments about my weight. I was obese for a time and heavily contributed to an eating disorder that is still with me 6 years later. He's a raging racist who told me I went into debt college just to be indoctrinated, and he willingly says the N-word. When a friend of mine died of a drug overdose at 19, he chastised me for grieving and told me. I had a friend die at 22 years old playing Russian roulette, and I didn't feel bad for him because he died being a dumb bar's mom defended this as well because I shouldn't talk to him about these things. He would scream. He once threw a plate because he swore I was lying about said plate being mine that was left on the table. He would lock me out of the house and threaten to let my cat outside. He picked on my brother to the point where my brother punched him in the face. Stepdad told my mom to choose between him and my brother, and she refused. I ended up losing weight and becoming thin, and when I felt comfortable wearing shorts, he commented on how they were too short and made him uncomfortable. And when I wore leggings, he literally said he could see my lips, and that it was disgusting. When I raised the concern to my mom, who I believe envies me due to her self-esteem issues, stepdad won't sleep with her, and has commented on how he's attracted to thin women, causing my mom to tell me that they have no sex life and that it's her fault because she got fat. She asked me where I expected him to look and said that I should feel weird dressing like that around him, causing me to only wear baggy clothing. Over the years, along with what I've mentioned above, I've endured anorexia and bulimia, to which mom said she's jealous because she wishes she could make herself starve or throw up. I've been roped twice, which led me to drop out of college. I was saw by my female cousin as a child. I've had 2 stalkers. I've nearly killed myself several times. And I've been diagnosed with ADHD and OCD as an adult. But when I seek support for these things, I'm just begging for attention. The present issue. My stepdad came into my room when I was in bed with the lights off to show me something, and then went on a racist rant about a conspiracy theory, basically stating that George Floyd didn't really die, and that it was a setup by Democrats to give BLM a reason to riot. I asked him to leave nicely at least 10 times before I told him to shut up. He kept on, and I eventually told him to shut the F up and get out, after which I heard him tell my mom he had to go to the basement before I go in there and punch her in her effing face. I lay awake that night, praying he wouldn't come shoot me in my sleep. Mom came in after and told me to leave, and I told her no, saying that she wasn't going to make me homeless in the middle of a pandemic. She later acted as if nothing had happened. A few days later, he was watching TV in the carport and couldn't hear it because I was in the car and had it running. Instead of asking me to turn it off, he sent my mom out to yell at me to turn it off, and then threatened to call the cops on me if I didn't. I was walking back into the house and asked him why he didn't just ask me himself, to which he told me it would have been pointless because everything I do is done to piss him off. I asked if he could have turned the TV up. He said that was beside the point and reiterated that everything I do is just done to make him mad. I said, "I'm sorry, the whole world is out to get you." And he said, "That's it, get the F out of my house," to which I said, "Evict me." Next thing I know, his face distorts in pure rage, and he starts running at me. I ran into the house, and he came up and grabbed me by the upper body and threw me to the floor. I got up and stepped towards him, Mom in between us, and he took both of us down. Mom got me in a headlock, and he was on top, hitting my head while she screamed for him to stop. I got up and left for my friends while calling 911. When I got back, the police were there and had spoken to him first, and then threatened to arrest me for leaving defensive marks on my mom, nail marks, because she wouldn't let go and I couldn't breathe. And they also unlawfully detained me. I went to the ER and was diagnosed with a concussion, my second one since November 2019, and a bruised tailbone. I went to the magistrate, and they charged him with assault inflicting serious injury. Next thing I know, my brother is calling me, telling me he knows I'm lying, and he and his girlfriend blocked my number. The only people in my family who speak to me are my mom's parents, who I now live with, and who believe me because they've always seen how my stepdad is. To add to all of it, my mom has told my grandparents that she caused the concussion by bumping into me and knocking me down. Now we're going to court, and I have nobody on my side. Mom tried to make peace by deciding not to testify against me, which she originally planned to do. But I got the police report today and saw where she lied to the police, saying nothing that I claimed actually happened, and told them I've had behavioral issues since my dad died. My grandma sides with me but refuses to take an actual stance, and I hate to even ask her to. I feel so terribly alone, and now I'm worried they're going to try to obliterate me in court because he has a defense attorney, and I'm defending myself because I can't afford one. If I didn't have a cat to take care of and grandparents who would be devastated, I would kill myself today. How do I get through this with my sanity intact? I've now been diagnosed with post-concussion syndrome for the second time in a year, which hardly helps. My concussion in November was so bad that I didn't feel like myself again until late March. I received this concussion in June, and it appears to be just as nasty. I have no friends to turn to as I don't want to burden them, and I'm very slowly losing all hope. If anyone has experienced anything at all similar, or has any advice to give, I could really use any support I can get. We go to court in August, and I have no idea what I'm going to do. Queenie 104. Please do whatever you can to get away. I lived somewhat the same story, and I cut ties with my mother forever. TLDR, a long history of abuse, neglect, abandonment, and mental illness that has all come to a head since my grandmother not only watched my stepdad assault me, but is now lying to protect him. Very self-harming with minimal support. In the comments. OP. Thank you for the response. Were you able to find peace in walking away? I fear I won't be able to make that decision without one day regretting it. But I cannot, and will not allow myself to be treated this way when I know I don't deserve it. They've made me think I'm an awful person for so long that I'm finally starting to realize I'm not the monster they want me to be, and it makes me want to just go and never look back. Update. I posted a while back about my situation and have a pretty detailed account of it all. At the time, I had just recently come to realize that my stepdad is a narcissist and thought my mom was as well, but I'm starting to think she's more likely an enabler. Quick summary. My stepdad and I-24F have always hated each other because I realized he was a nasty person and called him on it. My mom defended him, as I've always been seen as the problem child. The role of the identified patient resonates all too well with me. I lived away from college for most of the time he's been in the picture, so things never got too bad until I moved back last fall. The current political climate led to a heated argument one night, where stepdad threatened to punch me in the face. And then a few days later another argument took place over him wanting to kick me out of the house during the pandemic. It ended with him chasing me, grabbing me from behind, and throwing me to the floor first. I sustained a pretty bad concussion and a bruised tailbone. I called the police, who spoke with my mom first. She told them that I've always had behavioral issues, and that she didn't see what happened even though she was in the room the whole time. Long story short, they refused to press charges. I took out a private warrant, and he was charged with assault inflicting serious injury. He ended up hiring a defense attorney, and we went to court. I sought legal advice and ended up having the charge amended to assault on a female, as I was told this would be easier to prove, and I was to represent myself in court. His defense attorney bullied me on the stand, creating a story that painted me as an angry and aggressive woman who's mad for the sake of being mad. Stepdad not only denied what happened, but made up his own version of events and said that I came at him, causing him to feel threatened. Keep in mind, I am very thin or small, and he is not, and so he grabbed me from the front. He denied charging me from behind and said I was coming towards him, and he said I started to struggle when he grabbed me, so he let me go, and that's how I fell and got the concussion. The whole testimony was obviously rehearsed. The judge said there wasn't sufficient evidence to show that he intended to injure me, though there was evidence of the injuries. Not guilty verdict. I cried, and stepdad and his lawyer literally laughed. Mom sat in the back silently. I gave her the benefit of the doubt, hoping that she would see how massive of a lie he told and how he acted in court. I thought she would finally get it, but she said nothing about it and stuck with him. I've been in NC since all of this. It has been 2 weeks, and since then, Mom texts me almost daily that she loves me. The other day, she sent a GIF saying, "I miss you," and it infuriated me. Text from a mom. I don't know what to think. I love my mom, or who I thought she was prior to stepdad coming into our lives, but I can't bring myself to want to talk to her. I've found a lot of peace within myself since going to NC, and I know that if I let her back in, I'll be subject to abuse again and will start to question myself once more. They made me believe that I'm unstable, irrational, and malicious deep down. It took me going NC to realize how untrue that is. Has anyone ever experienced a similar dynamic who can give some advice? Is there any chance I can get my mom to see the reality of the situation? Revan comments. OP. I struggle with the idea of maintaining no contact, but it's harder to imagine going back. It would take my mom putting in serious work to abandon the idea that she and my family have of me. I've been the problem child since I was 7 years old, so the image that they've created of me is now their reality. Anytime I've tried to show them that I'm not that person, I'm told that I'm manipulative. I've been told I always play the victim, and I've been blamed for the awful instances of assault and abuse that have been inflicted on me by people inside the family and even strangers. I was saw in college and was told that I shouldn't have had a guy over, and that I shouldn't have dressed the way I did back then. I wore denim shorts that they deemed too short. Going NC is brutal, but I've never felt peace with myself like I do now. It's been almost 3 months since the assault from my stepdad, and this is the first time in my life that I actually like who I am and don't have the underlying fear that I'm pretending to be something I'm not. I hope that you're able to find a place where you can be yourself fully without feeling like you have to sacrifice your beliefs to keep the peace with someone who refuses to accept and validate them. Second story. OP's delusional daughter falsely claims OP's husband saw her. Listening to her dad, who abused OP and abandoned them, caused her husband to lose everything. Consequently, OP cut ties and went NC. Now she has contacted OP again, demanding a brand new car and weekly pickups to see her siblings, threatening to ruin her husband's life again. I-38F met L-16F father M-37 when I was 20, and he was 19. I won't get into detail, But it was an insanely abusive relationship. I know now that he is, or was, a narcissist. He has been diagnosed. There was no contact, no child support, and no family, so I struggled to raise my daughter by myself. When she was 7, I met my current husband. At 36. All aspects of our little family were great. She loved A. They did everything together. He treated her like his own. He was the dad she always wanted. We had 2 kids a few years later, W6M and Z5F, and L was excited to have siblings. Things were great until her 12th birthday, when she told me the only thing she wanted for her birthday was to meet him. I reached out to him, assuming that I'd never hear back, but to my surprise, his girlfriend responded and said they'd love to get to know L. That in itself should have been a red flag, and I should have just told her that I couldn't get in contact. But I felt like she deserved to meet him and form her own opinion. We met at a park a week later, and M told her he hated kids and never wanted any, and that she was a huge mistake. I wanted to completely cut him off at that point, but she wanted to keep seeing him. So, we set up a bi-weekly day where M and his girlfriend would come to our house and spend time with L. However, after 2 months, L decided that she wanted M around more, but that A needed to go so that M, L, and myself could be a family. The solution is to tell the school that A saw her. Of course, Child Protective Services showed up, and A was arrested. Because I defended my husband, CPS took my children from me and placed them in foster care. I went broke fighting with everything I had to prove I was a fit parent, and 9 months later, when L realized that M was not going to save her from foster care, she decided to tell CPS she was lying, and my kids all came home to me. It was almost another year before A was allowed to come back to the house, as we had to do intensive family therapy. In all that, we had lost our house and ended up in a 2BR trailer. And with 5 people, that is not ideal, but we made do. After everything, M kept his distance, but was still texting L regularly. M would only see L maybe once every 3-4 months or so. For the next couple years, everything was fine, except randomly, CPS would show up. Usually when L wasn't getting her way. But they would leave when they saw nothing was actually wrong. Until recently, L was struggling in school and told me in April that she wanted to drop out. I told her there was no way I was going to allow that. She doesn't bring it up again. I thought we were good. But towards the end of school, the end of June, L tells me she wants to spend the summer with him. I was hesitant. But on the last Friday of school, here comes CPS. They need to talk to me about L's abuse and A's abuse. I was in shock, so I agreed to let L spend the summer with them. And CPS magically disappeared from my life. L was insistent she didn't call them. L proceeds to not only ignore me all summer, but turn the only family I have, my sister, against me. She has been telling everyone about how abusive I and A are, and she's so glad to be free now. I found out via L's BFF that apparently M told L that if she lived with him full time, she could drop out of school and start her actual life. So about 2 weeks ago, I got a call from the school that seemed out of the blue, saying that I needed to sign off on my child being unenrolled. I called him and L to figure out what was going on, and was basically met with, I either do this or CPS will be back to my house, which honestly every time they show up, I have a panic attack because it's a trauma response at this point. L has now told me she has no interest in ever coming back home, but that she still expects me to buy her a car for her 17th birthday and pick her up every week so that she can see her siblings. M lives an hour or more away. A says I need to just let her go. He loves her, but it's not worth the constant battle and trauma they're causing me. And of course he's concerned about the repercussions of me fighting it. I don't want this to affect my younger two. Thankfully, they were too young to remember the first time. Today, M called me to ask how I was, which I know is a load of SHT. He seems all too happy, almost 17 years later, continuing the abuse. He knows my kids are my everything, and he's turned my daughter against me, and both of them use CPS as a weapon. L also FaceTimed W and Z and told them I kicked her out because I don't love her anymore. I don't want to just let my daughter go, but at the same time, I can't keep enduring this emotional trauma. I truly believe L has BPD, but because of her age, they won't diagnose her. But she has all the signs of it and a family history. I also haven't even begun to explain all of it. There's just too many things, but the things she has done to my family have completely broken me. Sad or depressed, don't even begin to explain the emotions I feel. But it's not good. I love her and want to help her. If you have actually read this far, thank you. I've been having panic attacks and crying for days, and I just really needed to vent. And I don't feel like I can talk to anyone about this. Update. I just want to start off first by saying I'm sorry for using letters instead of made-up names. It's my first time ever posting, and I didn't realize what a nightmare it would be to read like that. I will remember that for future posts. I really appreciate all the people who have taken time out of their day to give advice and share their stories with me. I will be going NC, filing with the court to turn over custody, and keeping any and all records in case CPS does show up again. If I could move, I would, but that's not an option right now. And to the people who are saying some really nasty things to me, I'm sorry that you are so filled with hatred and disdain for this world. I'm sorry that I wasn't a perfect parent. It's really easy to judge someone in a situation you don't know, but I was doing the best I could at the time with the information that I had. In retrospect, would I have done some things absolutely differently? Would that have changed the outcome? Who knows, but I can't change the past. I can only move forward from here. Update. Sorry for the delay. I had to take some time off from social media for mental health reasons. However, we had court today. Nothing happened as we were given a mediator, and it had been brought to the attention of the mediator that M has an open case with CPS. So therefore we have to be seen in front of an actual judge. From what I understand, mediators aren't allowed to make judgments when CPS is involved. They said they'd mail us a new court date. Something I did learn today, though, was that L has apparently changed her name to the same name as M's ex-wife, which I find a little odd and kind of disturbing. I'll update everyone after the next court date. And thank you to all the kind strangers on the internet for all their love and support. I really do appreciate all of you. Third story. Entitled sister demanded that OP give up her reception venue so she could have hers. She then proceeded to announce to everyone online, which OP declined. The family took sister's side, blaming OP, so OP waited until the day sister showed up at the venue in her dress with the family, only to get them kicked out, and then went LC. Dyslexic, and on mobile. Me and my partner are renewing our vows in a few weeks. My older sister got married in court a week ago, only telling 3 people, then dropping it on Facebook. Everyone asked where her reception would be, and she said she would send out invitations soon. Yesterday, I visited my mom with her since I can't drive due to medical reasons. On the drive there, she brings up her wedding and says she can't afford a reception. She drags on about the entire 45-minute drive there. I just stayed quiet, as I knew what I was doing. We had a good visit with my mom and left. On the way back, she starts talking about me renewing my vows and how lucky I am to be able to afford them. About 15 minutes into the drive, she comes up with the idea of doing a double reception so she can celebrate her marriage with everyone at the same time. I told her no, as she wouldn't be able to contribute to it, and I wasn't going to cover the cost for her. She acted like I didn't say anything and just started talking about changes I needed to make to fit both of us and a fairly split guest list. I just said I would not be sharing my reception with you. By the time she dropped me off, she had a plan to entirely change the reception to her liking. I just told her I would not even invite her if she continued to push for this. She just says okay and speeds off. Today I woke up to an invitation to her reception at the same time and place as mine on Facebook. She even posted about how kind I was to give her the chance to celebrate her marriage with everyone. I replied to the post, saying that I never agreed to that, and that she wouldn't even be allowed there anymore. Some people are now calling me for not just sharing the reception hall. It's a split between my family on whether I'm in or if my sister is overstepping. TLDR. My sister wants to take over my reception, and I refuse to share, even though I'm paying for it. I have several people saying I'm the as it's not my wedding, only renewing vows, and she can't afford a reception after her court wedding. Am I the for not sharing the reception with her? Edit. I have security already, and have an in-person meeting today day after post with them to discuss the guest list and the possible ability of the uninvited one. Security was already part of the plan, even before this incident due to other unkind family members who were not invited. So what's adding one more? The only reason I still talk to my sister is for my mother's sake, and I will continue to be in low contact with her, unfortunately. Thank you for your kind words. I was starting to think I might just be but then I realized most people who are saying this are people who wouldn't have been invited in the first place. I will update after the reception, as there are several people requesting it. AITA has no consensus bot. The OP was NTA. Give me awards, NTA. Your sister is out of line, trying to hijack your special day for her own benefit. It's your vow renewal, not a joint celebration. She needs to learn boundaries and respect your decisions. Stand your ground. Gastropodia 42, NTA. A lot of people just have receptions at home or a potluck in a park. She can have her own reception. She just wants to steal yours. Update. The vow renewal ceremony went long, so we were behind in showing up to receptions. The shuttle showed up just in time to see security stopping my sister without her husband and other uninvited guests from getting ID. I asked my party to stay back a minute, as I didn't want to overwhelm the security. Granted, it turned into a bit of entertainment. She had a couple $100 dress and was trying to overwhelm the security with just the number of people. The guard had quite a voice and yelled loudly that anyone who is here for Dig Sister reception is in the wrong place and will not be allowed in unless they are on the guest list. A large group of her party just walked away. My big sister starts demanding to speak to the manager. And how dare he scare people off? The manager showed up alongside more security. My sister puts on her best crying act ever. But the manager just says she and her guest have 5 minutes to leave the property, or the police will be involved. She storms off, screaming about how it was unfair and how much money she wasted on a dress for this night. The rest of the night was uneventful and really chill. The staff and security got a very good tip and any leftover alcohol or food they wanted. I hope that was the end of that. But this morning, I got a money request for $400 from my sister, saying if I don't pay, she will sue me. I have a lawyer, so this is of no concern to me because she wouldn't have grounds to stand on. I swear she's getting worse with time and needs some mental help. I'm limiting contact with her to email and only in regard to my mom's care. Relevant comments. Critical where 15802. Just out of nosiness. How many uninvited guests of sisters showed up? Trying to figure out the size of her entitlement. OP. She had 6 family members that I didn't invite and 7 of her friends. So 13 in total showed up. The reception hall was only rated for 25 people. Mysterious Knee 67. Too bad you can't get a restraining order against her. The entitlement and harassment are off the charts with your sister. OP. If it wasn't for needing to stay in contact for my mother's care, then I probably would have one. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.